Chapter 12, Littagale, the Trap. A month passed with Opal in the dragon's lair, but finally Opal grew tired of her vacation and decided to return home. Nowadays, Nolan occasionally visited Littagale, but his duties as a new husband kept him busy. Sophia was also busy settling into the mansion King Wesick had given them as a wedding present. Caspar had returned to Defendal to fill in their brother about Sophia's marriage. This left Littagale mostly alone with Tor, which wasn't bad. They hunted at night, flew over the sea every morning, and amused themselves in 100 different ways during the days. However, despite this excitement, Littagale wondered more and more when her adventure would come to an end. I missed my own brother's wedding, she thought. I could have snuck out like that time we went to the tournament camp, but Nolan was right. Someone would have recognized me at the wedding for sure. She scowled at the cavern floor. Opal's lucky, she thought. I don't have the option of just going home. I could say I saved myself and escaped, I suppose, but that lands me right back in the mess I was in before, getting married off to some awful husband. What am I to do? She tried not to think about Caspar, but the more she sat around, pondering life choices, the more she realized how devastating it would be to give up and leave with some other prince. Her ring these days was almost constantly black.
"It's your move,"
rumbled Tor's voice. Littagale pulled out of her thoughts and returned to their game of tic-tac-toe on the cavern floor. She sat in a lounge chair she'd brought out from the spa, and Tor lay on his belly across from her. The dragon used a talon to scrape his X's into the tic-tac-toe board. Littagale used a charred bit of wood to create her O's. She looked at the game and saw that, no matter what, Tor would win with his next move. Oh, fine. She rubbed an O into the floor. Tor loudly scratched in his final X, then slashed across his row to complete his victory.
"Huh, I win again."
Littagale winced from the scratching noise, but gave him a small smile. Congratulations. He looked at her a moment and flicked his ears.
"Are you as bored as I am? I keep hoping another prince will charge in."
He glared over at the mountainside crevice. She chuckled. You, Tor, are an action addict.
Me?
He pointed his tail at his chest in innocence. Then he motioned towards her.
What about you, Princess? I prefer to live with dragons.
She chuckled again. You might have a point.
Huh, I win again.
Littagale felt a drop of water on her head, and she looked up to see rain beginning to fall from gray clouds over the mountain. You'd better close the door. I'll go get firewood for myself. Tor hummed with pleasure and reached over to yank his favorite contraption's chain. The door slammed shut overhead, leaving them in dim light. Littagale headed for the crevice exit, and she saw Tor begin his curling routine that meant he was settling down to sleep. Littagale emerged from the cave and stood on the forest path. It was dark for that time of day, and she looked up to see storm clouds quickly rolling over the mountain. Raindrops were already falling on the leaves, and Littagale hurried farther along the trail to get wood as quickly as possible. Most logs were already too wet to use, but she found a few dry ones under a pile. Behind her somewhere in the woods, a twig snapped. Littagale clutched her logs and spun around, but she saw only the usual movement of branches in the wind. She turned around to continue up the trail, and this time she was certain she saw movement ahead. She ducked behind a moss-covered boulder and peeked out to sea. Who is out here, she wondered. Has a prince missed the crevice and gotten lost? Suddenly the wind wafted to her nose an overpowering smell of cologne. Littagale recognized the smell and gasped, and quickly turned to run back down the trail. With a shriek of surprise, she stopped immediately, dropping her firewood. Prince Deke Archwild stood on the path grinning at her. A squad of black-armored knights stood behind him, carrying torches that flickered in the rain. There was nowhere to run.
"Princess!"
Deke called with his arms extended. I am here to rescue you! Your prince has come! Littagale turned in the other direction to run around the boulder, but here stood 3 more knights and a dark-haired, pale woman dressed in a slinky black dress that was not at all practical for a hike on the mountain. Princess! Croaked the beautiful woman. Littagale's eyes widened in surprise. A witch, she thought. She must use some kind of spell that makes her beautiful. Oh, she's Ingeborg the Black. Why did Deke bring her here? Littagale backed away, but someone took hold of her arm from behind. She turned with a start and saw Deke smiling down at her. Deke held her roughly by the arm and spoke to the witch. Lead the way, Ingeborg. We must hurry before the dragon discovers us and comes to reclaim his prize. Ingeborg the Black gave a beautiful but unsettling grin and turned to lead up Mount Shadow's path. The whole troop of Archville knights started after her, and Deke pulled Littagale along. By now it was raining hard, and the rocks were slick as they climbed. Littagale struggled, but she knew there'd be no escape. "You're not going to fight the dragon?" she asked Deke. He laughed at her over the pounding rain. "I have a much better plan than that." But that's what you're supposed to do." "Oh, come now," Deke teased. "Don't you want a prince who's more brains than brawn?" Yes, she thought, but you're neither. Of course, Deke thought he was both, and he laughed again as he pulled her up the mountain.
None of the other princes were having any luck with the traditional approach, so I came up with a new strategy. I learned about the dragon's door that he closes over his lair when it rains, so it's just been a matter of waiting for it to rain. Now, here we are. How fortunate that Tor let you out to collect firewood. Obviously you were too scared to make a run for it, but now I'm here to help."
Littagale stumbled, but Deke held her upright and pulled her onward. Deke continued, apparently liking the sound of his own voice.
"No one in the history of this kingdom has been able to kill Tor the Intolerant, but to stop the dragon from coming after you, or from stealing any princesses ever again, I'm going to trap him in his lair."
Trap Tor, she thought. Oh no. Ingeborg turned and smiled at Deke. "She'll see for herself, Prince. No need to tell her our plans." Deke made a face.
"Oh, sorry. Was I monologuing again?"
The witch continued on their way. Deke gave Littagale a nasty smile.
"Don't worry, my pretty little princess. The dragon won't get you ever again." He touched her cheek. "You're all mine."
No, thought Littagale. No. They arrived on the top of the mountain, and Littagale watched as the knights carried their torches to stand in a circle around the mountain peak. The closed lair door lay in their circle's center, and Ingeborg carefully stepped onto it. The witch tested her weight on the solid wood, then smiled evilly at Deke, where he stood a safe distance away, holding Littagale. Littagale struggled against him. "You can't do this." Deke looked down at her with a scoff. "What? Why not? He'll be trapped." Yeah, duh. That's the idea." Deke looked at his knights and made a face like Littagale was crazy. His knights laughed at her. "But Tor will starve," thought Littagale in horror. "If he can't get out, if he can't fly." She opened her mouth to scream for Tor to wake up, but Deke clamped a hand over her mouth. She struggled against him, but he held her fast.
"Proceed, Ingeborg,"
ordered Deke. The witch, standing on the center of the door, held out her hand. A small, black, shiny stone lay in her palm. She carefully set it down and then backed away. She stepped off the door and walked to stand beside Deke and Littagale. Then Ingeborg drew her wand and pointed it at the stone. Littagale watched with everyone else as the witch began casting her spell. The falling rain was loud, but suddenly Littagale heard a deep rumble. Then she saw the stone start to jump and bump around on the wooden door. An instant later, it grew to the size of a fist. Then it was the size of a knight's helmet. Then it was the size of a horse. It grew bigger and soon was large enough to cover the entire door and stand high into the air. It finally stopped growing as the witch lowered her wand. Ingeborg sighed with pride. "It's done. Let's see the beast get out of that." Littagale tried again to pull away from Deke, and he had to uncover her mouth to hold her. She screamed over the rain and wind. "Tor!"
"What is wrong with you?"
Deke demanded. Suddenly there was a loud thud against the door from below. Tor roared in anger as he pushed against it, but the giant rock pitting the door didn't even budge. Spurts of fire shot up through the door cracks, causing knights to jump back, but even Tor's biggest blast couldn't break the barrier. "Ha!" Deke shouted in triumph. His knights all around cheered. Ingeborg looked proud of herself. She put a hand on Deke's shoulder. "It's time to show Marshwood that you've saved their princess and defeated the dragon at last." Another boom hit the lair's blockade as Tor tried again to break through. "No," thought Littagale as tears began to fall in her cheeks. "This is all my fault." "Tor!" she screamed again helplessly. Deke smiled. The storm whipped his cloak around him.
He held Littagale and motioned for his knights to follow as he started back down the mountain path. "Come, men, I go to claim my prize. I will marry this princess, and Marshwood will be ours."
The knights cheered again. "No!" Littagale fought against him, looking back one last time to where Tor was trapped, but had no choice but be dragged down Mount Shadow.